Welcome to Outlier on Air. We are here at Startup Ogden, which is a relatively new co-working space, and we're here with Alex Lawrence, who really is the face of the startup scene in Ogden, Utah, and there are great things going on here. We've traveled up here with Outlier magazine to sit down with Alex. Thank you so much for letting us come.
Good morning. Glad you're here. The face, huh? I don't know if there is a face, but
You're the go-to guy.
I'm one of the faces in this building, so there's a lot of them. So.
Okay, well, very, very humble of you to say that, but you really did move mountains to make this co-working space happen. We're talking about a triple level, 3 levels, completely renovated space, which we're going to walk through later, and it's very impressive. It's beautiful. There are accommodations for people who want to ride their bike in, who need a locker. It's really the ultimate. And so, first of all, I want to ask you, how did you pull that off, putting this all together, and how long did it take?
So, not trying to be humble, just factual.
Okay.
I mean, it really is a big group of people that pulled it off. It was not me moving the mountain. I mean, you can't move a mountain by yourself. There's a lot of people in it, but it was a pretty big mountain, so you had a lot of people pushing across the base of it to get it go. I mean, you had the Ogden City and the entrepreneur community, and then of course Weber State, which I'm representing today in my purple, you know. So 3 groups, and then we received some grant money as well one time from the federal government as a partner. So it started as something really small. We wanted to have a partnership between the university and the city to try and help economic development and startup companies and technology companies.
And when did that start? When did that process start?
You know, probably I've been at Weber now for about 3.5 years, so probably about 3 years ago. Okay. So I've been there for about 6 months, and they said, hey, we want to do something with the city, and you know, really open-ended, not much more than that.
Okay.
So met with the folks at the city, and we started spitballing ideas and brainstorming stuff, and then started to get to know the entrepreneur community up here better and talking to them about what they needed and what they wanted and how we could help. Okay. And then we all started kind of working together on what became this building. This whole building is 18,000 square feet. It's 3 stories. It's called Weber State Downtown, and that's the downstairs is a campus store, which you'll see later. And then the second floor has a small business development center and a continuing education classroom. And then that's about 1/3 of the space on the second floor. And then 2/3 is Startup Ogden on the second floor, okay. And then all of the 3rd floor. So Startup Ogden is definitely the biggest tenant, if you could call it that. But the way that we built it is pretty unique. The financial model is such that we raised the money from a grant from the federal government. We got $1 million from the federal government one time. Wow. And then we got money from Weber State and from Ogden City and from a few other stakeholders in the area, and put it in a big pile, about $3.5 million total, to buy this building, to renovate it, and get it completely outfitted and set up so that we never need money again. We don't need, as long as we have some people that want to work here and be here, which we don't need very many, because the costs are, you know, the utilities and the internet and the custodial are about it to run this place. We don't really have any other expenses. Then, you know, we can stay here forever. So that was one of the things that's unique about it. We don't need to go back to Weber State or go back to the city or back to the government, ask for ongoing money. We don't have any employees that work here. We don't have any expenses in that regard. And that's why I say, you know, it's very kind of you to say I'm the face or whatever, but it really is a community-owned, community-operated space, because we don't have any employees. I'm not paid to be here or work here. I mean, I work at Weber State, and that's part of my job. Okay. But it's community-managed, community-owned, community-operated, with the exception of the retail store downstairs. I mean, that's a business, and that runs like a business for the campus community. It's not open to just anyone, and I can explain that more later. So anyway, long answer to a short question, but it took a lot of cooperation, a lot of patience from all these different stakeholders, and a lot of passion and willingness to commit their time and energy from the entrepreneur community, from the city and state and local governments and the university, and it turned out really nice.
Okay, so. Yeah, beautiful. So it took you 2.5 years roughly from start to finish to get this thing open? Yeah,
kind of from just talking about general ideas. From the time we decided we were going to do this to the time we opened was probably under 2 years. Okay. So it took us a while to kind of get to what we were going to do, and then once we got there, it took us about 2 years.
So cities and universities don't always work well together. Yeah. In fact, in many cities, it's just known that they don't, that they really don't mesh. So how did you, it sounds like the university came to you working there, and you're the representative for them, and you started a project to really get with the city and come together, and this was a project. Did you come up with the idea, and was it tough to sell it? How did you nurture that relationship?
Yeah, no, I didn't come up with the idea. There were folks here in Ogden that had been wanting to do something like this before. Maybe not exactly like this, but something that resembled this. And so the folks at Ogden City, Brandon Cooper and Tom Christopoulos and Mayor Caldwell, they had been talking about something like this, as well as the entrepreneur community, which I think is super important. I mean, I think the way to do something like this is kind of get the government, the university, and those folks to kind of make it happen and help fund it and get it going. But then after that, I think it's got to be owned and managed and loved by the real business community in order for it to work. And so that's why this place hopefully doesn't feel like a university building. It doesn't look like one, doesn't act like one. It isn't operated like one. In terms of the best parts of it, I mean, we've got a great internet network that's the university's backbone, so fiber internet. Custodial, the place always looks really nice. Security, it's always safe and watched over. We've got cameras and security outside and inside 24/7. And so we get the benefits of that, but we don't have the bureaucracy and the red tape and stuff. But to answer your original question, the Weber State, the main reason I work at Weber State is because they are willing to do something like this. Most universities that I've met with and worked with over the years and encountered in other places would never do something like this. And certainly wouldn't do it with as few strings attached. They would make it a university building. It would look like one, it would smell like one, it would feel like one, it would act like one, and then it wouldn't be cool, and nobody'd really want to hang out there. So Weber State's a special place in that regard. And Ogden City, to their credit, they were very flexible and very willing to drop red tape and move things around to try and make it work. And so you had a lot of people that liked working together, that got along, that had the patience and the will to make something like this happen, which is fairly unique, like you said. It doesn't happen all the time.
Right,
so.
Absolutely. So the community needed it and wanted it, it sounded like.
Well, they've proven that. By now we've been open we haven't been open yet for quite a year. I think we've been open for like 8 months or so. We're totally full, and we have a waiting list for people to get in and get spaces. And as far as our projections for like cash flow and things like that, we're way past where we ever thought we would be right now. And so the market has said, yeah, we want this place, we need this place, and they've shown it with their dollars, which I think is really important. Yeah, we got this one-time money, and this place should be here forever because of that. There's no debt, and everything's paid for, and it's first class. But really what will be interesting is to see long-term, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years from now, is this place cash flowing really nicely because the market has said, we need a place like this. And I think that it will, but so far it's shown that that's the case.
So I'm not going to say that it sounded easy, but it sounded very serendipitous. Was there a big nail biter at some point that this wasn't going to work out? What was the toughest thing you had to overcome in building?
I would say all of us were committed, like we got to figure this out. So there was a never say die kind, but yeah, there were a lot of tight spots. I mean, like this window right here is supposed to have a big balcony. We ran out of money. So you're going to go out and sit on the balcony, right? And,
cut the balcony.
So we had to cut some things and other things that you probably wouldn't notice. But it was tense. And there were tight moments and stuff like that, but we were all committed to, no matter what, figuring it out and making it work. So we did figure it out, made it work.
Okay, so I have spoken to other people in other cities around the U.S. who want a co-working space. Maybe, usually geared toward tech or geared toward artists and makers or something like that. And a lot of folks that we've talked to have thought about, how are we going to finance this? Are we going to put our own money into it? What are we going to do? What advice do you have for them?
So this model, we called it Startup Ogden actually for a reason, because we were hoping you could take Ogden out and put something else in. And I know we've talked about this like in St. George, for example.
Sure.
I think it's a model that people might want to look at. I mean, give us more time. But this idea of getting university and government and city monies together, and even sometimes federal money, to kind of push the thing over the edge, because that's where a lot of the risk is. And then have the community take it from there and support it, both financially and otherwise, I think is really important. Because if you look at most co-working spaces around the country the last few years, they don't make it, they don't survive.
Right.
And it's usually because they're undercapitalized and they didn't spend enough money up front to make it the right kind of environment.
Right.
And then they just kind of slowly go away. So part of that is because people aren't willing to invest in them, their time and their commitment to the community. Like, people know this is going to be here. They know it's first class, it's open 24/7, some of the amenities you talked about. So they're willing to come here and spend time here and set up shop here and be a part of a community here because they know it's not going anywhere.
Right.
And I think that's important, is having that financial stability. It also gives us flexibility and freedom to do stuff like host events for free and provide the food. And we've got cash flow we're going to do some scholarships for startups in the winter, and we can bring in speakers and just pay for things that we can do out of cash flow because we don't have any debt to service and we don't have to pay a landlord and all that kind of stuff. So I think that model is one that I would look at. If I were in another city, I would think about that, because The other option is, just really, really deep pockets to do it right as a privately funded operation, which is also a good choice, but I think that's a little bit more rare.
Okay. So can you name some of the grants that were instrumental?
The federal government, they do a lot of different ones, and I'm not a grant expert. That's where Ogden City came in, for example. Ogden City and our grants and contracts folks at Weber State. And so I can't remember what the grant name is called. It's the EDA, Economic Development Agency, I believe, is the federal agency. But you can tell I didn't have a lot to do with that. The folks in Ogden City and Weber did a great job of applying for that grant, writing the grant, winning the grant, and managing the grant. So, but there's a lot of other ways to do it that probably aren't super interesting to you.
Okay.
Trust me, they're not super interesting. They're pretty dang boring.
Okay, that's helpful. But can they go read about? Have you posted about?
No, and we should.
Okay.
What we mostly do is just invite people up. So we've had people from a few other states come drop by and spend some time here, and definitely some other cities in Utah, and we just told them everything about how we did it. And it might not translate exactly to every city, but kind of this idea of figuring out how to get your local universities and your local governments and maybe your federal government to put together a pool of money. And then I think part of the thing that is really important is you need to pick a spot that's like right in the main part of the action, like main. Like you can't pick a spot that's like outside of where the action is. And that's hard in some cities. I mean, real estate especially, we're lucky we got this building for a really good deal. And in some cities, the main is the most expensive real estate in the entire place. So it's tough to. So there were some things going for us that other cities might not have. But there's a model here that people can copy, but we haven't documented it yet for public consumption. Not on purpose, just kind of been busy, So.
Yeah, and this really has become the envy, I think, of the co-working world as far as I've seen, because we've been around now to several cities, and typically co-working spaces aren't this nice. So I can see why there's a waiting list and things are very well orchestrated. Are you thinking about starting up some kind of accelerator program, or?
Yeah, I mean, the scholarship program that I talked about is something we're going to use. So it's all self-funded. We're not going to go get money. It comes from the memberships and dues and stuff in here, which, by the way, I think it's important to note they're $50 to $99 a month for a seat. Okay. That's probably cheaper than anything you've seen in your travels, I would imagine.
Absolutely.
So they get first class, maybe even world class space that we didn't spare a dime on, and connectivity that's world class in terms of fiber internet and all that stuff. And they get it for $50 to $99 a month. So I mean, it is a pretty compelling offering, and it's month to month. They don't sign a contract, come and go as they please. But we've got plans to use some of those monies to offer scholarships to startups to come work here in the wintertime. We're not going to call it an accelerator or.
So you're not taking equity.
Not taking equity.
Not doing any of those things.
We're not claiming a strong mentor network. We're going to Skype in the mentors. We're going to get the very best mentors we can from around the world and Skype them in instead of saying, hey, Ogden, Utah's got this great mentor network of experts. We do have a few, but not enough to really help these companies push the needle. And so we're going to Skype in folks. They will. It's more like a really loose string attached loan. So the only term that will be associated with the cash that we give them, so we give them cash, facilities, a place to live, ski passes to the resorts, and kind of make it a wintertime thing.
Of course you need that.
Yeah, is a payback clause that once they bring in $500,000 in revenue, they will pay back the money that we gave them. So, but not in return for equity, and it's not like a personal guarantee or a note, or it doesn't show up on their balance sheet as a debt or things like that. So pretty loose, and that money goes right back into the program to fund more companies. And we've done this up at Weber State with our entrepreneurship program that we did up there, and it works well because it's a very triumphant moment for them. Like, hey, I raised money, and that counts as $500,000. If you raise $1 million or $2 million, that counts as bringing in $500,000. Or you generate $500,000 in revenue, or you sell the company for $3 million. Whatever crosses that $500,000 total, they get to write a check back to the program and go, hey, here's the $25,000 back that you gave me to start this business that is now cranking. And it goes right back to another company. It doesn't go in to pay me or pay a salary or pay overhead or anything. It goes right back in to do it again. And so it's kind of exciting. We've had a few companies pay it back, and it's kind of an exciting moment for them. Yeah, so they're proud of it, So that's the only string attached. And we haven't announced yet. There's some details to work out. We've got to work on it. We're trying to get that running by winter of next year.
Okay.
So.
Cool. So we've talked a lot about Weber State and how they're involved, and you're at Weber State. You're a professor there. Tell me a little bit about your role there first, and then I want to dig into your background just a little bit.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm a vice provost at Weber State over innovation and economic development, which means I've got I'm responsible for Weber State's responsibility for this building, which is mostly the top 2 floors. Like I say, kind of the 2/3 of the second floor and the 1/3 of the third, or all of the third. And then in no particular order from there, we've got a USTAR office that reports to me at the university, which is Utah Science, Technology, and Research Initiative. It's just a real small office. And then we've got UCADE, which is the Utah Center for Applied Innovation and Design, which is a makerspace where we do prototyping and engineering and for partner companies in the area, mostly aerospace and outdoor products. Okay. So we've got students down there working on prototypes and reverse engineering for like bike companies in the outdoor industry or aerospace at Hill Air Force Base. And so that's a 22,000 square foot building that you'll see on the freeway down by Lagoon. You might have seen the Weber State signs down there. Yeah. And then we've got the Office of Sponsored Projects and the Technology Commercialization Office, which is where the grant money comes in. Technology commercialization is where companies are spun out of the university to licensees that want to turn them into companies and projects. And then a few other things I teach in the entrepreneurship program at Weber State. I teach internet marketing and entrepreneurship in the MBA program. And I'm pursuing a Ph.D. right now in business at Oklahoma State. And wow, I don't know what else. That's probably enough.
Outliers, are you chomping at the bit to get your products and services out to the world and really boost your sales? Two of the most common worries that we hear from entrepreneurs at all levels are handling social media and search engine optimization. We all know that there are services out there to provide this for you, but the question is, who do you trust with your brand and your valuable cash to do it right? If you've heard my friend Anthony Tran from Marketing Access Pass on Outlier on Air before, you'll know that he is a true expert. After he presented on Outlier on Air, we got an awesome response because his knowledge really resonates with entrepreneurs. Anthony and his team at Marketing Access Pass provide done-for-you services for social media and SEO so that you can focus your efforts on the strategic activities of your business. We also have negotiated great rates for Outliers, so go to outliermagazine.co and click on resources at the top to take control of your social media and search engine optimization today. Okay, so you haven't always been in the public sector. You've been in the private sector, and you've been instrumental in the success of several companies before that for what, 20 years or so?
Yeah, more than that.
So what transitioned you in to the public sector?
So Weber State called me. I got a master's degree at Weber State in 2004. I was the only self-employed person in the program. So all my fellow students were all working for somebody else. And they all had their employers paying for their MBA and stuff, and I was paying for it myself and had my own company. We were, doing 10, 15 million at the time, and good business and traditional business. Had a bunch of restaurant franchises and commercial real estate and stuff, and just decided I wanted to try MBA. Something to do to challenge myself. I'm not very academic, believe it or not. I'm not a great book smart person, so it was kind of just doing something hard and challenging myself, and I really enjoyed it. I had a really good experience. It was good value. I learned a lot. I learned stuff that I can actually apply to my business and use in my business, which my bachelor's degree, I didn't get that. I didn't enjoy it. I didn't feel like I learned anything I was going to use. I feel like a waste of time and money. It was a struggle for me. So I had this really positive experience with Weber State, and so I started getting involved. I'd come back and speak and other things as an alumni and stuff. And then they called me and they said, we've got this vice provost position, and we want to do more stuff. We want to consolidate and do USTAR and do UCADE and do all these things, and the story I like to tell is when they were kind of describing to me what it was, I thought they were going to ask me if I knew somebody that wanted to do it, or they were going to do a reference, like they were going to ask me about someone they had in mind. It did not cross my mind when I was sitting there that they were going to ask me if I was interested, So when they did, I was like, whoa. Boy, I don't know. I mean, the last time I'd worked for somebody, I was a bagger at a grocery store in high school. Yeah. So it'd been more than 20 years. It'd been like 25 years. Wow. And so it was not part of the plan at all. But, I took a few weeks and asked lots of questions and talked with my wife and just thought about what it would be like. At the time, I was a CMO at Lendio, and we had raised an $8 million Series A and just had our most profitable year ever. And, not an ideal time to leave, right? Well, maybe it is in a way. You kind of, when things are really going well, you kind of
the Jerry Seinfeld.
Yeah, but I yeah, right. I'm out. It wasn't planned by any means though. So my partners at Lendio, I went back and said, "Wow, you won't believe what happened to me today." I was very open about it, and after a couple 2-3 weeks of talking and figuring out, just decided to do it.
So why the MBA and why the PhD after so much experience in the startup world, after all that you've done at the university?
So the MBA was a test for me and for higher ed. I was like, you know what, my bachelor's degree sucked. I didn't like it, and so I want to.
So I want to go back for more.
I want to see if there's more out there, you know. And everybody said an MBA, you know, and I wasn't doing it to get a job or to be a consultant or to get a promotion, which are all fine reasons to do it. But that wasn't my intent, you know. I wanted to actually see if I could learn some new stuff that I could use in my business. And so it was, you know, it was affordable. It was at night. The classes were close to my house, and so I don't know. It wasn't really, there wasn't a plan at all. PhD is more of a plan. But it was very open-ended. Like when I finished, nothing changed for me other than I knew more about business and finance and stuff like that. Like I didn't, you know, like I said, I didn't get a promotion. I didn't go apply for a different job. So, which was totally different than my peers. They all had a very specific outcome they were looking for from getting the MBA. So I had a good experience, and you know, I look back on it, I never would be here at Weber State now, probably if it weren't for that, because I wouldn't have made that connection, you know. My wife and some of my best friends were graduates, but that probably doesn't qualify as a connection, you know. So
by osmosis.
Yeah, so that was a good experience, and PhD. So I've been here now for about 3.5 years, and it's been a blast. I mean, it's really fun. I really enjoy it a lot, and it's totally different than running a business, and totally different kind of fun. And
is this how you're going to finish your career too?
I think so. I mean, because when I look back on entrepreneurship and starting and running companies, it was really not about, for me, it's different for everybody else. For me, I look back on it and think, why did I like that? Why did I do that? Because I never wanted to be a fireman or an engineer or a lawyer or a doctor. That was never, I never even thought about that. I just always wanted to do my own thing. I don't know. And so it was, if you would have asked me if I would be here doing this and a PhD, I would be like, I mean, even 10 years ago, even 5 years ago, I would have said, no way. But now that I've been here for 3.5 years, I look at why am I having so much fun? Why do I like it so much? Why do I enjoy the work and you know, take a financial kind of cut, right? Because you don't get profit sharing, you don't sell a company, you don't get bonuses, you know, or whatever you want to talk about in terms of owning a company, distribution, that all goes away. Why? And I've come to realize what I really enjoyed the most about being an entrepreneur was the variety. I love being able to do different stuff. Yeah, I love to be able to do different things every day and every week. And so if you look at my track record, you know, every 5+ years, the business will be sold. And it's a pretty common theme, you know, you get bored or whatever, or it gets to more of a managerial stage where that's not as fun as the startup stage. And all that stuff was true, but it was really about just having variety and being able to choose what I wanted to do. And I have never had more variety in my life professionally than since working here. I mean, the groups that I named you, there's a few others on top of those that I work with. So I work with probably like 6 or 7 groups. And I get to interact a ton with the business community. So I get to kind of keep that connection.
That's nice.
But I get to do all these I'll work on like 10 things during the course of a day that are totally unrelated. I mean, and I learn so much. I mean, I get to work with these engineering groups and these software the programmers and
it's exciting.
And yeah, I get to
merge a lot. It never gets old. Types of people.
Yeah. So when you say, I mean, yeah, I think I am going to stick around for as long as they'll have me because the variety is so intense that it's just never boring. It's always interesting and always fun. And it feels, on a cheesy side, you feel a little bit like maybe you're trying to help others a little bit more than just help yourself, you know, because when you're building a company, it really is about building a company. But at the end of the day, you're benefiting significantly directly on your own. Where this is like, hey, if we help 20 companies this year at Startup Ogden build and grow, it's really not going to change. I mean, I guess it gives me a form of job security, but it's really not going to change my life directly all that much, you know, other than the karma that you get and the good vibes and the good feeling and stuff. So yeah, so it's fun and rewarding, and the variety is high, and that's what keeps me coming back for more.
Okay. So if you had reached back into your startup days when you were in the private sector, can you tell me of a time that was maybe one of your biggest learning experiences, one of those big struggles that you needed to go through?
Yeah, there's a lot.
Good, then we have a lot to choose from.
You know, most of my experiences, I had partners, really good ones, people that were smarter, had more experience, or different experience to contribute than I did. And I think that, you know, business is hard, and learning how to kind of manage relationships through difficulty is a really something I really value from having been in private business and having partnerships. Learning how to manage relationships through difficult situations is something that's useful regardless of what you're doing.
Yeah.
So, being through kind of tough times and making tough decisions in tough times, and sometimes making the hard decision instead of the easy one because it was the right thing to do by somebody else or whatever. You say you want to do those things and you think you want to do those things, and then when it's time to do those things, it's hard.
Can you think of an example?
Well, I can think about a couple of examples that as I'm talking about it.
I'm springing this on you.
Yeah, no, I can think of a few in my brain that I'm kind of recalling as I'm talking about it. That, there's opportunities when you're the managing partner or the controlling shareholder or whatever to kind of make sure that you're taken care of and not everybody else or others. And you want to be kind of direct in your decisions and tough in your decisions and stuff, but it's a small world. I mean, what comes around goes around, and especially around here, it's a small community. And so I think that I'm a driver, I'm a goer, a pusher, and sometimes that rubs people the wrong way, and I'm not going to change that. But at the end of the day, I want to be fair and equitable. And I think there's opportunities when you own businesses and run businesses to kind of stack the deck in your favor because you're the one that owns the cards.
Sure.
So if you can resist that temptation, and there's times when I was able to resist that temptation, other times when I was not earlier in my career, and I learned from that, like what the outcome looked like by mostly just focusing on giving yourself a good hand versus trying to play a fair deck. I'm not talking about ethical things. I'm just talking about if you've owned a business, you can just do stuff to kind of focus on making your life better and your outcome better, and not really as much. And the older I get, I mean, I start to sound like an old grandpa or something, but I look back and I think the more you can, my dad, I don't know if he made this up, and maybe you can look it up and see, but he used to always tell me, on your way to the top, the more people you take with you, the quicker you'll get there and the longer you'll stay. And I don't know if he took that from somebody else or if that was something, but if you think about that for a minute, on your way as you're climbing this ladder, right, the more people you can latch onto and drag on your back and push up, whatever you get them up there, the faster you'll reach the top and the longer you'll stay there. And it took me a while to learn that. I mean, I was a pretty aggressive, hard, and I still am. I mean, I think people that know me would say that sometimes I push it too hard or whatever, and I rub people the wrong way on occasion. But I think the older I get, the more I realize that it's more about, collecting this group of friends and peers and stuff that 20 years from now are still going to take your call, are still going to want to help if you need something, and that you feel good about helping in return. So to answer your initial question, I guess thinking about the big picture in business is really hard when you're stuck in the day-to-day grind of, cash flow and employment issues and competitors and fundraising and all that stuff. But trying really hard to remember that bigger picture about the people that you're working with, the people that are working for you, your partners, and not losing track of what's good for them instead of just what's good for you and the business. In the long term, it will pay off way more than the short-term gains and the easy stuff that you take. And so there's a time in my career when I took too many of those easy decisions and easy roads when I, wish I wouldn't have. So I don't know if that kind of...
No, that's
a generic answer, but it's an important one that I've learned over the last 25 years.
That's a great point. I've been in the corporate world and I've been in the startup world, and for some reason the corporate world was a lot more hard-nosed, and the startup world, especially in the beginning, was a lot more of a giving culture. And I think that that's because before a lot of money comes into play, everyone's just putting their blood, sweat, and tears in it and working together. And they see in the beginning that, it's give. And as you turn more corporate, as a company turns more corporate, it's harder and harder to do that. So that's a really great point.
Yeah, and especially for ownership, because they're starting to get more pressures, and sometimes they're bringing in outside money, and it's a hard thing to do. And so I think I don't know if you're looking for advice or lessons learned or whatever that is, but I think that's something that I've looked back on that I would have been. I wish I would have learned sooner.
Perfect. So one last question for you.
Yeah.
What do we have to do to get you in St. George?
Oh, that's easy. I mean,
permanently.
Especially permanently. In the wintertime, that's where I want to be, right?
We'd love to have you down there.
You guys have, I've owned some places down there over the years and spent a lot of time down there over the years, and you don't have to ask me too often. I love going down there. You guys actually have we've talked about this, you've got a really special community that has a lot to offer. You just got to kind of figure out, and we were talking about this earlier, like Startup Ogden, like we're really honest about who we are and who we are not. Like what benefits do we have? What challenges do we have? And just being really open about that, and not trying to pretend that we're Silicon Valley or trying to want to even become Silicon Valley. just trying to optimize for our community that we are, trying to improve that and move the needle and get better. But same with St. George. I mean, I think you guys have a lot of benefits and a lot of beauty and a lot of wonderful things to offer, but some real challenges too because of your location and the size of the community and the nature of the businesses that you've attracted over the years and stuff. And so, but you guys have great people down there. You'll figure it out. I'll come down whenever.
We appreciate you.
Invite me down.
Help and
I
your
love to.
mentorship.
I love to come down. You guys are. It's an awesome place. So, and it's awesome what you're doing with Outlier.
Great. So for our audience's sake, where can we find you online? I know you do a segment with KSL regularly.
Yeah, on Tuesdays I go to KSL and we talk about technology stuff on Channel 5 around 12:30. Usually every Tuesday. I mean, I'm out of town sometimes, or they have like the AG scandal the other day. They bumped me for that, which is fine, you know.
Okay.
So, and then Twitter's a great place, which I don't know if you put it on the screen or whatever. It's a little underscore before my name. Those are probably the two best places to. I mean, well, you can't interact with me on KSL, so Twitter's the best place to catch me for interaction if you want to chat.
Okay, fantastic.
So,
And then you have a blog at
Startup Flavor.
Startup Flavor.
I stink at blogging. Ever since Twitter came out, like I blog less.
I see you on Twitter all the time, so that's the best way.
That's my best platform. I like being confined to 140 characters versus
I'm with you.
writing paragraphs and upon paragraphs.
We're getting pretty good at it.
Yeah, you guys are. Yep, I follow you guys. So follow Outlier. Yep.
We learn from you. So
I don't do it right all the time, but it's fun. It's a great way to communicate.
Well, thank you for welcoming us here.
Yeah.
We really appreciate it.
You guys are spending the day here with some companies. So
we absolutely are.
It'll be fun to watch. That's what it's
we'll
about.
Do a walkthrough here.
It's really about them and what they're doing. So you guys are talking to them.
Well, thanks for kicking it off for us.
Yep,
we
cool.
appreciate it.
Okay. Adios.